Welcome to the Rochester, New Hampshire History Podcast, a monthly show that will shine a light on a piece of history that has been all but forgotten.
Near the address of 60 Rochester Hill Road sits a historical marker. Most drive by it and not realize that it is there. It marks the site where the Jabez Dame house was located. The house that Jabez built had the distinction of being the first frame house built between Dover and Canada. You can still walk to where the house was located. The foundation and rock walls are the only evidence that a grand old house once stood there. In 1756, Jabez Dame became engaged to Maribah Emery and started to build a house for them. Legend has it that while working on the house, press gang was in Rochester looking for men to press into the British military service. That night, to evade the press gangs, Jabez concealed himself within the house he was building. However, in the morning, he regretted hiding from the British and voluntarily enlisted in the military. He joined the army in the midst of the French and Indian Wars. He served in the expedition against Cape Breton in 1758, serving without pay and furnishing his own equipment, as well as those of several other soldiers from Rochester that went with him. After his military service, he returned to Rochester and completed his house and married Maribah. The house originally was much larger than shown in these pictures and was defended from Indian attacks by a palisade and windows that were provided with heavy wooden shutters. On one occasion, Jabez saw a group of Indians approaching his house and he hid in the attic. The Indians searched the house and finding no one, they set fire to it and left. Jabez climbed down from his hiding place and built a fire in his yard so that the Indians would still see smoke and not return. He then put the fire out in his house.
He soon became interested in the affairs of Rochester, serving as town clerk, selectman, and representative. In the 1770s, he again left Rochester to go to fight in the American Revolution. Jabez attained the rank of sergeant and served in the New Hampshire Regiment led by Joshua Wingate from Dover. Jabez returned home from the American Revolution and continued to serve Rochester. He was the legal advisor of the town council, which he led until his death. For many years, the council met at his house, and as senior member, made the decisions, which was noted for their clearness and justice. Jabez was offered the place of the first judge of the district, but declined, regarding it an unnecessary expense. After a long, well-spent life, he died on November 14, 1813. His estate, which was then the largest in Rochester, was divided equally among his 8 surviving children. In the 1930s, during the summer, the house was a tourist attraction, with tours costing 25 cents per person. By 1975, the house had remained in the Dame family for over 200 years, but was abandoned and in bad shape.
Arnold Scrome of Illinois purchased the house from the Dame family. He painstakingly took the building down and numbered the pieces of the building and shipped all the pieces and nails by train to Illinois with the expectation to rebuild the house for a place to display his antique collection. However, Mr. Scrome's wife became ill and he never rebuilt the house. The dream of rebuilding the Dame homestead did not die though. Mr. Scrome sold all the boards and nails to Steve Figmiller of Balsam Lake, Wisconsin. Mr. Figmiller completed the task, and the house that once stood on Rochester Hill in colonial times now stands in Balsam Lake, Wisconsin. And this ends the podcast. For any questions or comments, please email bobgriffinpodcast@gmail.com and come back next month for another episode of Rochester, New Hampshire History.